Hello everyone, I'm very happy to be speaking to you all today, and I'm very grateful that Euromontana had the chance to partner with AREPO, Moving and Origin on this event today. I will not take too much of your time. We, together with AREPO and our Origin, we saw that it would be very important to make enough time for producers to talk about mountain products, so we will be rather short. In case you don't know Euromontana, we are a multi-sectoral association. We are 28 years old, so soon planning the 30th anniversary, meaning that we have a mix of different stakeholders representing mountain stakeholders, so mountain territories. We have 65 members in 16 countries now, comprising regional authorities, producers association, development agencies, research organizations, and a few other profiles to complete the mix. So what we represent are the mountain communities. We have been working on mountain products for about 25 years. I was just updating this slide because I have not created it, and the last version just said 20 years, and now it's 25, so time flies. But also a lot of work has been done. So just to focus on the last few years when things really took off, so things took off for the mountain products when the optional quality term mountain products was put into law at European level. And as you can see on this slide, on the bottom part there, so year after year we kept working on it. So we followed the legislation. We advocated for legislation before it happened. Of course, it was not a coincidence. And ever since the Delegated Act of 2014 on the mountain products quality term, we have really been very active promoting it among producers, among European mountain regions. And you can see here in red some highlights and milestones, going from organizing an actual European Mountain Convention event on that topic in 2014. Then a 2016 Charter for Mountain Quality Food Products, where we really encouraged and reached out to producers and regions to make use of it and raise awareness about it. And more recently, well, 4 years now, but with COVID, time is dilated somehow. 2020, we published a study, a quite detailed study on the uptake of the optional quality term for mountain products. I will tell you more about it in a few slides from now. And in 2020, that was also the starting of the Moving project. So there is definitely a connection there. And since 2020, we kept working. And I will tell you more about what we are planning to do in the future, or what could be the pathways for the future of the optional quality term for mountain products. And of course, we are collaborating with Moving and with AREPO to make this future, or to define how this future could look like. So I'm sure you're all aware, but just as a reminder, the optional quality term is actually two different regulations, one for mountain products and one for products of the outermost regions of the EU. There are some logos that you can see here for the outermost regions, but there is no European logo for the mountain products. That's to be discussed later, maybe. But that's just to set the frame. So the idea behind this optional quality term was to recognize the difficult condition with which products are being produced in mountain areas and islands as well. The expected benefits, so they are in the regulation, they are pretty clear, they are very well stated. So this is just a summary there. So first of all, the idea of this optional quality term was to recognize the social, environmental, and touristic value and constraints of the mountain areas, and help the producers better market their products, obviously. The idea is also to make it clearer to the consumer what is actually a mountain product, and that we avoid fraudulent claims on the origin of some products. It's also an alternative for producers that maybe are small, very small scale companies and maybe don't have access to other quality schemes. So that's meant to be, or that was meant to be, and it is actually in practice a very simple quality scheme. And indeed, preventing fraudulent use of mountain products. That was another expected benefit. I don't go in the details, but as I said, the criteria are very simple. They are stated in this regulation. You can look it up, but basically, if it comes from a mountain, it's a mountain product. If it's processed in a mountain, with some exceptions, this is also a mountain product. Right. Now, what we did in our 2020 study was to look at how this was actually implemented in the last years. Implemented because member states had a lot of flexibility to define a number of measures to implement it. For example, derogation for the processing of products. The European regulation allows a derogation of up to 30 kilometers, but some member states can decide to implement this derogation or not to implement it. They also decide on how the controls are done, whether there is a national law defining a logo and some rules on that, whether there is a need for pre-authorization, notification from farmers. I mean, all of that is done by the member states, so it's quite important for us to understand how it has been done in practice. So in this study of 2020, which you can find on our website, we looked at most of the European countries, and you can see here on the map the one in blue, or the one that have proactively implemented the legislation into their national law in different ways. You can find in the study a chapter for each country. We don't have time for that now. So this is just an overview of the differences. I've listed here on this table all the countries that we looked at in the study. And you can see that 3-4 countries stand out with little blue boxes there. It means that they are the countries that had a more maximalist approach to this regulation, in the sense that they have established a proper national law. They have clarified whether they use derogations on processing of product or not. That they have a pre-authorization system, controls, a database, and sometimes a national logo for the mountain products. But then, if you look on the right, the column called uptake, it's the actual number of farmers or producers that use this optional quality term mountain products. And there are very few numbers there. First of all, because when there is no national registry, we don't know. We can ask, but we don't have very good numbers. So the ones who have a national and public registry are Bulgaria, Italy, and Romania. Italy and Romania are the biggest users of the optional quality term, followed by France, even though we don't have details, but we know that it's been used, and you will hear more about it later from Yves. And Bulgaria has a registry, same as Slovenia, but very, very little uptake, especially in Slovenia with a nice 0. So what does that tell us? That tells us that there is no consistent use of the optional quality term. We see some trends. We see that Bulgaria and Romania have a very similar approach. We see that France is more relaxed about how it's implemented, which leads to some difficulties and weaknesses. And Italy is kind of in between, so that's quite a very interesting case. But it doesn't tell us a lot. So the conclusion that we drew from this study was, first of all, that it's not meant to be, we don't expect the optional quality term to be used uniformly everywhere. We don't want it. Mountains are very different. Some countries have other means to promote their products. And it is clear that it is not relevant everywhere for everyone. Still, we have to understand in which cases it is relevant, in which cases it is useful. We also noticed that in the countries with an active communication campaign from the government and the producer association, it helps the uptake. Obviously, there is no secret here. What is missing from this study, and that's a segue to the next presenter, is that we didn't really evaluate the actual impact on the ground for the producers, for the consumers, on the value of products. We didn't have that. It was a study on quantifying the uptake. So it was not clear, and we need to understand whether the expected benefits have been realized, whether there was even an incentive to relocate some activities in the mountains to benefit from this quality scheme. Short answer was not really. But it's not a big surprise. And does it contribute to the economic resilience of the mountain value chains? Not clear, but the potential is there. But all of that was not in our study. That's why what we need to do is to gather more data. And this is in this context that we have collaborated with Moving and AREPO to try to start getting this kind of data, this qualitative analysis that we are missing. Because without this qualitative analysis, we don't really know what direction we should take with this optional quality term, whether we should keep things as they are or be a bit more strict or more flexible. And this information has to come from the producers. And I will hand over to you, and I will come back to all of you in a few minutes for a couple of conclusions. Thank you. Thank you, Julia. So I'm going to be very short. It's just some conclusion, and I didn't want to make them before she could present the result of the work of moving. So to us, it's an excellent example of how we can collaborate and work hand in hand with a research project and also with AREPO, of course, to keep building on the knowledge we have currently on this optional quality term. So the key takeaways from as far as Euromontana is concerned is that generally speaking, we definitely need to collect more data of this type. So in this project, of course, moving could not cover all the countries, and we have only 2 mainly, so that's not sufficient. So we need to find ways to collect more feedback, and we are doing that today also with the next speakers. We need to hear from producers how it goes on the ground. Clearly, there are different realities, and clearly from the weaknesses that have appeared in the study, they relate to how the member states are implementing the OQT. It does not really question the intention or the scope or the criteria that are put into the EU regulation. So in the short term, the way that we understand it is that we need to work more with the member state to optimize the way that the OQT is being used, with more clarity and incentive to help producers make use of it and just know about it. Definitely having national registries not only makes our life easier here in Brussels, but probably also helps with the promotion and the control of the OQT on the ground. The question of a logo is quite important, because we notice that if there is no dissemination and promotion campaign, it's really hard to expect any significant uptake. Then whether it means having a national logo set into law or a more private or producers-led initiative like in France, this is to be assessed better. Also, a point that was clearly showed in the study is that we also need to ask member states to facilitate collaboration and collective governance among producers, as was said and as was expected and as was known before. The users of the OQT are often very small producers who don't necessarily have the means to access solid and mass media or expensive promotion measures. At EU level, I would say in the short term, we need to find ways to better promote the OQT. So of course there is a promotion program where the OQT is of course eligible, but one little remark is that on the website, if you look at the eligible schemes, it is not listed. It is in the regulation and everything, but it is not on the easy to read page, as far as I could tell yesterday. And we heard about why not having an action plan that does not require changing the regulation, which is already there. It's nice. So that's definitely something we could explore more, and it sounds like a good idea maybe to combine an action plan for GIs and OQTs, whether mountains or islands. I mean, everything is okay. And longer term, after we have collected additional data, after we have optimized the way that the OQT is known and used on the ground, whether we need to reassess the regulation at European level, that's for a later discussion. Whether we need a European logo, that's also for a much later discussion. But that's definitely some of the pathways that we need to keep on the radar. And as far as Euromontana is concerned, we will keep digesting the study from moving. We will integrate it into our own study, and we will keep updating it over the next years with input from producers and of course, qualitative and quantitative data so that we keep track of how this OQT is going. And on that, I stop and I hand over to Céline. Thank you very much.